Let's start with the class today. I hope you all can see the board. The board is visible to you all, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, fine. So last week we started with the two concepts, trade discount and the cash discount. So out of that, we were looking at what is a trade discount is. So I am referring to the same example which we had last week, which is available on the board as well as you might have taken down last week. So if you see in this particular example, the company PQR Trading Company, which is located in Mathura, is buying 50 TV sets, which is 40 inches from Abbas Company, so which is like a bulk purchase. And the list price of this TV set is 60,000. Okay, so we have to be very clear what is this list price is. List price is the price tag that you will see in a product when you go to purchase a product. So when you enter into the showrooms, they will say list price is this, discount price is this, or maybe say 10% discount or whatever. So we are not talking about the discount here, we are talking about the list price. Now, since PQR Trading Company is making a bulk purchase, they are in a position to negotiate for a discount with the seller, who is Abbas Company. So in this bulk purchase of 50 TV sets, there is a negotiation and they agree upon to purchase it at rupees 55,000. So rupees 55,000 each, which means the PQR Trading Company is going to get a 5,000 rupee trade discount. 5,000 rupee trade discount. Now, right. So if we go back to the slideshow, you will see the trade discount. What is the description for the trade discount? A discount given by the seller, who is Abbas Company in this scenario, to the buyer, who is PQR Trading Company, as a deduction in the list price. Now, the list price is 60,000, so there is a deduction because the seller has agreed to sell it at 55,000, which means the buyer is getting a deduction or reduction in the list price of the commodity, means PQR Trading Company is getting a discount of rupees 5,000. This discount is known as a trade discount. A trade discount. Now, the important part here is, if you look at it from the scenarios of both these companies, because both these companies are doing a business. So as a result, we will take each of these companies' point of view. Now, let us take first Abbas Company. If you take the Abbas Company, for them, it is a sale. For them, it is a sale. So at the time of the sale, what they have done, they are allowing a discount. They are allowing a discount. So that is a discount allowed sort of a thing. But for PQR Trading, they are receiving the discount. So that is a discount received. Okay. Here, Abbas Company is allowing a discount. For PQR, it is a discount received. But unfortunately, these two types of discounts may not be recorded in the books of accounts. Okay, because it is being a trade discount. Because it is being a trade discount, because what is happening here is Abbas company, the price that they fix for 60,000 is not something which is recorded anywhere. Okay, this 60,000 price is just the list price. List price means they would have calculated their cost of sale, that is making the product available for sale. Whatever the cost that you might have incurred to make the product available for sale, plus they would have made a little markup. Markup means the profit margin. So now the price that they have quoted here, the list price, is just a price for the customer or the consumer to buy. So they have not recorded the 60,000 anywhere. They have not recorded the 60,000 anywhere. So what they are going to record now is the 55,000. So when you record this 55,000 means this 5,000 is already ignored, because there had been a negotiation. So the customer, the buyer and the seller has agreed to give up that 5,000 and obtain that 5,000. As a result, what we have now is the 55,000. So what you have to remember is, in accounting, whenever you come across a trade discount, that trade discount will not be recorded in the books of accounts. Any transaction relating to the trade discount will not be recorded. And how you will identify a trade discount? There has to be mostly a bulk purchase, and there has to be a reduction from the list price. That is another element. And why this why this trade discount is given is to facilitate bulk sales. From the point of view of the seller, they want to give a concession to the buyer, for them to induce the buyer to buy more, not just one product, but they will buy more. Another important aspect is, when do you give this discount? So that is at the time of selling, if it is from the point of view of the above company, or from the point of view of the PQR company, means at the time of purchase. So at the time of the purchase, you are offering the discount. Okay, right. Now let's get on to the cash discount. So I hope you are now clear with what is the cash trade discount is. Now let's look at any questions on trade discount before I get on to cash discount. No questions. Right. So let's get on with the cash discount now. Now look what is going to happen. Now this PQR trading company has purchased. So which means they are purchasing 55,000 each. 55,000 each. 50 TV sets. So that is somewhere around rupees 2,750,000. 2,750,000. Okay, you can calculate the numbers. I hope you all can see the board.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes.
So in case if you can't hear me or just see the board, just let me know by way of a message so that I can refer it to IBSL. So what has happened here is, now the parties, the buyer and the seller, has entered into the sale, which is at 55,000, to purchase the 50 TV sets. Okay. Now see what is going to happen. Right. So now I am going to take off all these, which is not relevant. So the sale has happened at 2750. Right. Now let's assume this is a credit sale. Credit sale. So you know by this time what is a credit sale is. Right? Because if it is a cash sale, PQR Trading Company will pay 2.7 million, 2750 immediately to Abans Company and they will go. So they will record Abans Company will record a cash sale, debit cash, 2750, credit sales. Okay. So when we talk from here onwards, or maybe say we have already started talking about double entries. So whenever we talk about transactions, you should visualize what is the debit and what is the credit. Okay. That is very important. Because that is what I expect from all the students by revising and continuously following this class, that you should be able to formulate the double entries by yourself as and when we come across the different types of transactions. Okay, right. So now when it comes to a cash sale, you know, debit cash, credit sales. Fine. Now let's assume that this is a credit sale. Now this is a credit sale. So today is 10th of January. So let's assume that sale is happening today, 10th of January 2021. And the terms and conditions are agreed by the buyer and seller. That is to pay this 2750. PQR Trading Company agrees to pay this 2750 prior to, let's say, 25th of February 2021. Okay, so which means I'm roughly talking about how many days? 45 days. Correct? 10 to 10 is 30, 30 plus another 15, yes, 40, roughly about 45 days. So the credit sale has happened. That is, the agreement between both parties is that PQR Trading Company will settle this 2750 either at once or maybe in piecemeal before these 45 days to Abans Company. Okay, so when that happens, what will happen? Now Abans Company will record a transaction on 10th of January 2021. What is the double entry? What is the double entry? Yes, what is the double entry? Now this is a credit sale. Yes? Someone? Debit. We will debit debtors. I'm talking about in the books of Abans Company. Debit debtors. Okay. Credit sales. Credit the sales account. What is the amount? 2750. 2750. And if you are to write a description, what would you say? Being the sale of 50 TV sets of 40 inches. Are we clear on that? I think there is a lot of silence today. Why? Are we clear with the double entry, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Pardon? You all are clear with the double entry, right?
Sir, excuse me.
Yeah.
Can you repeat it again?
Now, when it is a cash sale, what will happen? Abans Company will receive cash. PQR Trading Company will pay cash. So what will happen? Immediate cash sale means you will debit your cash, Abans Company, debit cash, credit sales. Okay, cash is immediately received. The example that we are talking about now or looking at now is a credit sale. The credit sale, which is happening on 10th of January today, and it is valid for 45 days, where PQR Trading Company agrees to pay Abans Company the 2750 within the 45 days. They can pay it at once or maybe at like several payments. It doesn't matter. As long as they settle it before 25th of February, the transaction is okay. So now what happens? The sale is done. Goods will be delivered to PQR Trading. As a result, Aban's company have to record now this sale. This sale is a credit sale. So initially, where will it go? If I am to go back to the books of primary theory, it has to go to the sales day book. Sales day book. So I'm assuming that from sales day book, it is coming to the ledger now. What is the ledger account? Debit debtors, credit sales. Credit sales. Right. Okay. Now I feel that it is clear now. Okay. Right. Now look what is going to happen. Let us assume that January month is done. January month is done. So which means about 20-21 days are gone. You have come to February. So Aban's company is expecting some payment from PQR Trading Company, but nothing is happening. You have come to, let's say, 10th of February also. 10th of February also you have come. But still there is no payment from PQR Trading Company. Because what will happen is Aban's company cannot go and force PQR Trading Company to pay prior to 25th of February. Because PQR Trading Company has every right to pay it even on the 25th of February. No problem. That is what the common understanding of a credit sale agreement. So what happens on 10th of February, just like after 1 month, Aban's company gives a call to PQR Trading Company. Gives a call to PQR Trading Company. Now what they say, Aban's company, look, if you can pay me something, before 20th of February, before 20th of February, I will give you a discount of 5% of the payment. Now it has to be very clear. Now on the 10th of February, Aban's company is giving a call to the accountant of PQR Trading Company and telling them, look, today is 10th, before 20th of February, just giving them a 10 days grace period. If you come and pay me before 20th of February, I will give you a 5% discount. Now, why this is happening is sometimes Aban's company might require cash. Okay. So, even though when you give 45 days of credit period, sometimes what happens, companies will fall into cash requirements or maybe cash difficulties. Okay, that we call it as liquidity problems. So when you enter into liquidity problems, what will happen? You will have, even though you have given 45 days, now you are in a critical condition where you need cash. So now as a result, they call and tell them, look, if you pay before 20th of February, I will give you 5% discount on this 2750. On this 2750. So what is 5% on 2750? That is about 2,612,500. 2,612,500 is what they have to pay. Okay, so that is a discount. That is some amount which is about 137,500. A discount of 137,500, which is a larger sum. Okay, as far as the company is concerned. So if you really look at it, another 2,750 rupees per TV set. You are selling 50 TV sets means if you divide it by this amount, now you have given a further discount of 2,750 because you are already have got 5,000 discount each. Now you are getting another 2,750. Provided PQR Trading Company settles it prior to 20th February. Prior to 20th February. Okay. Now PQR Trading Company is now motivated. Why? Now earlier when they wanted it at 50,000 rupees, Aban said no, I can't give you. What is the maximum that I can give you is 55. So somehow PQR Trading Company agreed for that. But now what has happened? Again Avans is coming and saying that look, if you settle me this payment prior to this date, I will give you another 5% discount. Means I am going to get another 2,750 per TV set. So PQR Trading Company is happy now and they are making arrangements to make this payment prior to February 20th. Let's assume on the 20th or maybe say on the 19th, PQR Trading Company settles this amount. What is the amount now? It will be 2612,500. 2612,500. Now look what is going to happen. When the money is received, what is it for you? It's an asset. So you will debit cash. Debit cash. What is the amount? 2,612,500. Okay, that is the amount that you have received. But what is the total amount due from PQR Trading Company? That is 2,750. So what you need to do? You need to reverse that entire amount because now PQR Trading Company is not going to pay you 2,750 because you have given a consent to pay only this amount. So now you will credit the debtors for 2,750 so that you will not have any amounts due. Right? I am talking about the books of Aban's company, right? I am talking about the books of Aban's company. Now, this is the initial double entry. Now we are talking about another set. Now, based on your double entry, you will see there is a problem because debits and credits are not equal. If you are to
Hello, excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
We can't see the board.
Okay.
We can't see the double entry right there.
What about now? Is it visible?
No, sir.
Is it visible?
No, not yet.
Right. So what I'll do is I will erase this bottom part and write it. Okay. I hope you would have taken down this. Right. I will erase this. Now initially, you know, you debit debtors, which is for 2,750, and credited sales 2,750. That is the first transaction when you did the sale. Now we are talking about the customer, which is PQR Trading Company, coming and paying 2,612.50. So your debit will be cash. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Right. Debit cash account 2,612,500. But you know, the present outstanding debtors in the name of PQR Trading Company is 2,750. But now they are not going to pay 2,750. They will pay only 2,612 because you have agreed for a discount. So what you have to do is you have to reverse the entire debtors. So debtors account, you will reverse 2750. Now see the double entry. When you look at this double entry, if you confine to the accounting equation, your debit is 2612,500, your credit is debtors account 2750. There is a difference between the two. There is a difference between the two. Now, what is this difference? What is this difference? That is the discount that Aban's company offered. You see, that is the discount Aban's company offered. So, as far as Aban's company is concerned, this is a discount that they allowed. Discount that they allowed. So, what we will do is we will debit discount allowed. Discount allowed account by 137,500. Now your double entries are equal. Why? You have two debits. One is to the cash account 2612,500, which is the PKR Trading Company paid before 20th February. Another debit to say that the discount allowed on this transaction is 137,500. The credit is the original debtors entry that you passed, which is 2750. Okay. So I hope this is understood by you all. Now, what is this discount is? This discount is not a trading discount or the trade discount. This is called a cash discount. A cash discount. Why this is called a cash discount? Because Aban's company offered this discount to make PQR Trading Company to pay quickly. They wanted them to pay immediately or maybe quickly without waiting for the 45 days. So in businesses, this happens. This is a regular transaction that happens. Whenever people want liquidity, companies like Aban's or maybe any business concern, whoever into the business of credit sales, what they will do is, at the time of doing the credit sale agreement itself, they will say, look, I am giving you a credit period of this much. 40 days or 45 days or 60 days, whatever. But in case if you pay me before 30 days, I will give you a discount of this much, 2% or 5%, whatever. So that what people will do is people will agree at the outset itself to motivate the buyer to pay them in a quick time period without waiting till the entire credit period. Waiting till the credit period is already available to them. There is no problem. In this case, PQR Trading Company can use the 45 days. Doesn't matter. But if they are utilizing the 45 days, what will happen? They have to pay this amount. So now Aban's is giving them an option. If you pay me before February 20th, you have to pay only this much, 2612,500. Okay. So please take down. And if you have any questions, please ask. Okay. So let's make a small note here. Take down. In the above example, in the above example, PQR Trading Company, PQR Trading Company, PQR Trading Company PQR Trading Company has the option to pay the due amount before 45 days. Before 45 days from the date of the sale. From the date of the sale. From the date of the sale. However, if they settle the due amount, before 20th of February 21, they can enjoy a further discount of 5%, from the total amount due. From the total amount due to be settled. From the total amount due to be settled. This discount is known as a cash discount. A cash discount. A cash discount. Next line. In the books of Aban's company, 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 the above mentioned discount, the above mentioned discount will be recorded as a cash discount. Will be recorded as a cash discount. Within brackets, discount allowed, discount allowed, discount allowed. Okay. So I showed you the structure of the cash book. Give me 1 second. Right. So look at this. Now, assuming that this is the cash book of Aban's company. This is the cash book of Aban's company. Now, we were talking about a double column cash book. Now, this is the double column cash book, where you will have the cash column and the bank column on the debit side as well as on the credit side. Now, here what has happened, when you receive cash, say if they have paid it in cash, you would have debited the cash column, this particular column that I am showing. Let me show it in a color. Right. Right. So what is shown on red, this particular column, you will record the 2612,500, which is your cash amount that you have received. Similarly, what will happen? You will record the amount of discount that you have allowed. That is 137,500 in the column that I have marked in green. You see? So what happens here, the double entry per se, since this is the prime entry book, first you have to go and record the transaction in the prime entry book. So what is the prime entry book here? The cash book. So cash book, what you will do is you will debit the cash column 2612,500, debit the discount allowed column with 137,500, and you will credit the debtors with 2750. Okay, this you will do on a monthly basis or maybe on a daily basis you can do. So assuming that you are doing it on a monthly basis, what you will do is at the end of the month, you will go and total the amount of discounts that you have allowed in the green column. Okay, and that amount will be recorded in an account which is called the discount allowed account. That will be the P&L account. That is a P&L account. Just like the sales account, you will have a P&L account called discount allowed. So when you do a credit sale and when you offer a cash discount, this column will be inactive. That is, you have to record the transaction in this column. Similarly, when you enter into a credit purchase, and when others offer you a cash discount, that is, you are supposed to pay 2750, but you are given a 5% discount, so you will pay only 2612,500. That you will record in the credit column. So I will mark it in a color, let's say in yellow, and we'll mark this in blue. Right. Now let's see. In the case of a credit purchase, what will happen? If you are offered a credit cash discount, then you will pay only a lesser amount and the balance part, you will record it as a discount received. That is, the company will receive a discount. Okay. So the cash book plays an important role when it comes to the cash that you actually received and the amount that you have foregone or you have benefited. Okay. So discount allowed means the amount that you have foregone, because you have forfeited that amount, assuming that you need the cash early. But here what happens? You have benefited by paying with a discount received column. But what happens here? Unlike the other situations, you will have to pay in advance. If you are given a credit period of 45 days, sometimes you might have to pay it in 30 days. So what will happen? The cash will go out early. So it is very important for a company to manage its cash effectively. This you will learn in other subjects when it comes to cash management or liquidity management. You have to manage your liquidity at the optimum level. So what do you mean by optimum level is, you should not be maintaining high amount of cash, because it doesn't make any sense, because cash will not earn anything. You know, if you suppose if you have say 50,000 rupees at home, just keep it with you maybe for 6 months or 12 months. What is it going to earn? Nothing. But the same 50,000, if you have it in a bank in a fixed deposit, you will have some interest accrue to that. So that is a clear difference. Whether you want to keep money without being used or you want to use it effectively. So cash management or liquidity management has to happen in the optimal way, which is not maintaining cash at high or not maintaining cash at low. Because what happens when you maintain it at low, sometimes you might fail to make payments. If there is a tax payment and if you fail to make that payment, sometimes what will happen? You might even lose your license to run the business. So you have to be very careful in managing your cash position. Every business has that issue, even the banks. Now, banks, of course, doesn't do it in this manner. They have liquidity management, regulatory reporting to central bank. So their reporting is at a high level, not like this. What we are learning here is a normal trading business concern, but banks do it separately because we deal with people's money. So in our case, the liquidity management is very vital and important. Okay. So I hope the two discount criteria is clear with you, right? So going back to the trade discount and the cash discount, this is the final summary. So in the case of a cash discount, you know, it is a deduction in the amount of invoice allowed by the seller to the buyer in return for immediate payment. So this immediate payment need not be on the same day, but it could be prior to the agreed credit period. Okay. Why you do it? That is to facilitate a prompt payment. Now, why you did the trade discount is to facilitate bulk sales. Now, here you want the payment in advance or maybe early. When it is allowed, the trade discount was allowed at the time of purchase, but cash discount is allowed at the time of payment. Please make a note of those, because these might be tested in the exam by way of an MCQ, or maybe you might be requested to write the differences or comparison between trade discount and cash discount. So you need to know these criteria. What is the description? What is the purpose of having these two discounts? And when it is allowed, whether you will record it in the books or not. So trade discount, you will not record it. Cash discount, you will record it in the books of accounts. Okay. So I hope the discount part is very clear. And after that, what I have is a small example for you to record these transactions in the cash book. Okay. There are about 5 279. Oh, yeah, 9 transactions are there. So what I want is, I want you all to give it a try. Okay, for you all to record these transactions in the cash book shown below. You have to draw up this cash book. What you will have is, you have the date particulars, you have the transaction details, which is the particular, but you will not have the voucher number. Okay, don't worry about the voucher number, that you can keep blank. You don't have the ledger folio also, that also you keep it blank, but you have the details pertaining to whether it is a cash or a bank transaction. Okay, whether it is a cash or a bank transaction. I don't see any transaction with a discount here, so you don't have to worry about the discount part of it. Again, there is a credit side. So I want you all to record these about 9 transactions, and I want you to finally look at what is the closing balance. What is the closing balance in the cash book? Okay, the same question I will do it in the class next week, but I want you all to give a try to do it by yourself, how to record these transactions in the cash book. Okay, right. Now we go on to the last topic on the day books, which is the petty cash book. So up to now we have learned about 6 day books. Yeah, more or less, including the general ledger or the general journal. We have learned about 6 day books. This is a 7th day book. So what is that? That is the petty cash book. Petty cash book. So name itself gives you an understanding. What do you mean by this? Now you already have a cash book. Now we are talking about a petty cash book. So what is that? That is like a mini cash book. Mini cash book. You have a big cash book and you also have a mini cash book. So what happens is, this mini cash book, the requirement of the mini cash book is there with the companies when you want to do a small kind of transactions. Small nature of transactions are handled through the petty cash book. All large volumes, or maybe say larger type of transactions, are handled through the main cash book. So we need to segregate what are the transactions that we are going to perform using the petty cash book. So I can name few. Say sometimes you might want to buy refreshments for meetings. So you can't be running to the main cashier asking them to pay small amounts like 3,000, 4,000. You can't be asking, because they do transaction at large amounts. So what happens is, in such an instance, you need to have another cashier. Normally we call them as petty cashier. This person will maintain a small amount of cash which was obtained from the main cashier to maintain or to pay for a small nature of expenses. Okay, sometimes what happens, your photocopy machine is broken. So you will want to make some photocopies, but your machine is not available. You might go to a shop outside and get photocopies. Now the photocopies may cost you 100 rupees or maybe 200 rupees. So this 100 or 200 rupees might have to be paid again by way of cash. This payment of cash will happen through the petty cashier, not from the main cashier. So it is an option given to the companies for them to choose whether they want to maintain a petty cash or a petty cash book or not. Sometimes some companies doesn't want to do it. They always want the main cashier to do all the transactions, but it might not be practical with the volume of the transactions relating to the company. So what we would prefer is to have a petty cash book or a petty cashier to handle the normal nature of small nature of transactions. Okay, so what will happen at the beginning of every month, the petty cashier will ask for a certain amount from the main cashier, and that amount he will make use during the month to make payments of small nature. At the end of the month, for all the payments he has made, he will prepare invoices, bills, everything, and the particulars, and get it signed by whoever who was received cash. And that total will be given back to the main cashier, and that amount will get replenished. We call by the term replenished. So let me explain this by way in the board so that you will understand better. Right? Okay. So now we are talking about two parties. One is the main cashier. Who is handling the cash book. Who is handling the cash book. And there is another person called the petty cashier. And he will be handling, or he or she will be handling, the book called petty cash. Okay. Now, how this operates? So, a company, when they want to use a petty cash book, they will decide upon what is the amount that we will make use of for all these petty cash payments. So every company will have their own amount. Let's take an example. This petty cashier will have 20,000 rupees every time for him to make the payments. So what happens at the beginning of the month? The main cashier will pay rupees 20,000 to the petty cashier. Okay. Now you have to recall how this will be recorded in the books of the company. So what will happen? When you give the 20,000 rupees here, you will have to debit the petty cash account for the 20,000 and credit your cash account. Cash account means the main account where the double columns are maintained. Cash account. Now this is done. You debit the petty cash account of the company and you will credit your cash account of the company. So now this 20,000 amount is the responsibility of this petty cashier. This main cashier is also answerable for this 20,000, but currently this person will be accountable for this 20,000. Okay, but when you take the company as a whole, this 20,000 is also part of their cash. Say in the case of banks, now if you look at the bank, if you ask for the cash position of the bank, let's take a branch. What is the cash position of the branch means? There will be counter cash, cash that is being managed in the counters. Then you will also have in the vault where the cash is stored, or maybe say you keep in safe custody. Then you will also have cash in the ATMs or maybe the CRMs, right? So if you look at the total cash position of a branch, bank branch, it includes all these amounts. What is the cash held in the counters? What is the cash held in the safe lockers, or maybe the vault, or maybe in the ATMs and CRMs? So ultimately, in a business concern, normal business concern, if you look at the cash position means the physical cash held by the main cashier the cash that is held by the petty cashier plus the cash that you have in the bank account. The cash that you have in the bank account is what? Entirely your cash position. Entirely your cash position. Okay? Right. Coming back to this example. So the main cashier at the beginning of the month gives 20,000 to this person. So now he has the 20,000. So now what happens during the month? People come for various types of expenses, right? Let's say one kind of expense is taxi fare, where your office assistant or maybe the minor staff will go to various places to hand over documents or maybe to collect documents. So the taxi fare, as and when he goes, this petty cashier will keep a record. When, what are the bills supposed to be kept, all these particulars will be handled by the petty cashier. So let's assume the total taxi fare during that particular month was 4,500. I'm just taking an example. 4,500. Then you have also purchased some stationery. Which is for about 1,500. 1,500. And let's also assume that you have taken some refreshments for meetings. That is about another 6,000. Okay, so this is for the entire month. So if you take in total for the entire month, 4,500 plus 1,500 plus 6,000 means 12,000. So now what is going to happen? The petty cashier started with 20,000 at the beginning of the month. By the end of the month, he has spent 12,000. So which means he has a balance of rupees 8,000. Rupees 8,000. Okay, this is what happens. Now, under this petty cash concept, petty cash account concept, what happens is, before you go to the next month, on the last working day, petty cashier will prepare a schedule showing all these details and with the attached bills or maybe invoices, whatever that is relevant to this. And he will take these expense bills of 12,000 and the schedule, and he will go to the main cashier. Okay, he will go to the main cashier. He will hand over bills for rupees 12,000. 12,000. Okay. So once it is received, the main cashier will verify all the details, whether all the bills are correct and these expenses are for various types of expenses, everything he will check. Once it is in order, at the beginning of the next month or maybe at the last working day of the current month, he will again give him how much? Rupees 12,000. He will again give rupees 12,000. Now when you receive this 12,000, what will happen? You already have 8,000. Again, you will start with. So this is what companies will do. When you are having a petty cash account, this is the process that you will do. You have a startup amount which is 20,000. You will do all your expenses, prepare a schedule, attach bills, go and hand it over to the main cashier and get yourself replenished with the amount. Once you are replenished with the amount, you will start the next month again with this amount. So this is called with a special name. This is known as the impressed system. Impressed. We call it as impressed. I-M-P-R-E-S-T. What do you mean by impressed system? Is this mechanism. You obtain amount initially, then you do some expenses, prepare a schedule with all the bills, go and hand it over to the main cashier at the month end and get the amount replenished. When you get replenished, again next month you will start with 20,000. Okay? So this is the concept of petty cash book. You can take down, and if you have any questions, please ask. Okay. So do you have any questions? So can I assume that you are clear with the petty cash concept?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Right. So I hope you have taken down. Let's go back to the topic. Right. So under the petty cash book, we say, as I explained to you, the petty cash book operates as an impress system. So I have explained what is an impress system is. It has a float paid in at the beginning of each month. So what we call this in the example that I told you is 20,000. This 20,000 is also known as the float amount. So you can mark it in what you have taken down. 20,000 will be known as the float amount. This float amount can vary from company to company. The company can decide what amount should be given with the petty cashier. So accordingly, they will decide on a float amount to be given to the petty cashier. So what is the objective? To record small cash receipts and payments. So it is not only for payment. Sometimes what happens, when you receive any refunds, you will go and give it to the petty cashier. So petty cashier will in turn hand it over to the main cashier. Now, I'm not going into details of the main columns, because what happens is you will have a structure for this petty cash book, right? So when you look at the petty cash book structure, it is everybody, people will maintain in different formats. That doesn't matter. But end of the day, what is important is you need to be in a position to understand whether you have recorded all the transactions. Whether you have recorded all the transactions. So that is what is important. So if you look at it in that manner, let us try to record these transactions in a petty cash book. So I will want you to go through these transactions and let me explain it to you on the board how to put up this petty cash book. Okay, right. Okay, so is the board visible to you all?
Yes, sir.
Right. I don't know whether the text that I have written is visible to you. So we will have a template like this. Okay, that is how it works. The petty cash book. So it will be like again a table sort of a thing, where you will have first column will be the receipt. Receipt means the money that you receive. Now this is the petty cash book, right? Petty cash book. Then you will have a date, description, voucher number, total payments, and then you will have another miscellaneous column. Okay, that we will call expense classification. Expense classification. Now what happens is here, these petty cash transactions will be very large, or very large in the sense what we mean by that is, say you might have to pay taxi fare several times. So you cannot be taking each and every transaction to the main cashier for them to record in the cash book. So what you have to do is you have to group them accordingly and then put it into a relevant schedule like this and give it to the main cashier. So what you need to do is you have to do a grouping. That grouping is this. You will put all transactions of similar kind in one particular column. So let's look at the example that I have given you, so that will give you an understanding. So look at the question. Record the following transactions in the petty cash book of Martin Limited for April 2019. Following are column headings. Column headings are there, right? They have given, but we don't have to worry about it. Let's look at I'll just show you once the transaction. So these are the transactions that we need to record, right? So 1st of April, there had been a transaction which is cash on hand, impress. So impress means the money that you have received from the main cashier, and that is happening on 1st of April. So 1st of April, you are getting 20,000 from your main cashier. Okay. Main cashier. That is the amount that you have received. Then on 3rd of April, what is happening? You have a transaction happening which is for stamps. Now let me take you to the board so that it will be clear to you all. Right. Now look at what is happening. The first transaction we have recorded. 1st of April, cash received 20,000. As I told you, the receipts will be on the left side. The money that you receive. Now here, date and the description cash received. Rest of the lines will not be filled, or the columns will not be filled, because that is not relevant. But when you look at the second transaction, on 3rd of April, you have paid rupees 300 for stamps and you have a voucher number there. So 3rd of April, my description is stamps and voucher number, they say 1, right? 1. And the amount that I have paid is rupees 300. So what I will do is, now stamps is a particular column for me. So I will go and write stamps here. And I will put this 300. I will put this 300. Okay. Is that clear? Now this is one petty cash transaction. Now on the same day, if you have some other transaction, that you will keep on recording. You will keep on recording. So here I have only 300. So my total payment is 300. Then on 5th of April, again, you have a coffee voucher. So you might have taken some customer or somebody to the coffee shop, and you have had coffee, and the amount is, let's say, 150 rupees. So you can call it as refreshment or coffee, whatever you might like. let's say refreshment, and that will be 150. 150. Okay. Then you had made a smaller kind of a donation. Somebody, some ticket books or something. So you have paid a small kind of a donation on 7th of April, which you have named it as charity. Charity. So there are the voucher number, they have given you a ticket book or whatever, 303, and you will open a column called charity. So charity will be 5,000, and that total comes 5,000. And the last transaction, 8th of April, again you have purchased some stamps. That is, I think, for your stocks. So that is voucher number 4, and you have paid 1,800. You see, this is how we record the transactions. Okay, let's assume that we have come to the end. I haven't given further transaction just to make you understand. So if you look at the total transactions for the month are this. Okay, now let's total this. Okay, 6,800, 7,100, 7,250, 2,100, 150, 5,000. So what is important here is the totals of these columns should agree with the final total. That is what important is. Okay. Now the total here is 7,250. 7,250. Okay. Now what will happen? This 7,250 will get deducted from here. Okay, because you have made this amount of cash in the cash book. So now what will happen? You will say payments.
Hello, excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
We can see the left side on the board.
You can't see the left side of the board. That is this first column, receipt.
We can only see the date column.
You can't see.
Previous one. Oh, yes.
Ah, okay. You can see only the date column, is it?
Yeah.
What about now?
A little bit clear, sir, but not properly. We can see the
Okay. Well, let's manage with this because I have to then erase the entire thing. So there is a column before the date column that is known as receipt, and I have marked the 20,000 here. Okay. So what you can do is you can mark that as 20,000. Now the total payment that we have discussed, we are going to mark it on the last day. Let's say 30th of April. 30th of April, this 7,250 will be deducted. Okay, that is on the first column. Sorry about it. If you had told me, I could have shift this that side. So this 7,250 deducted means now you will have 12,750 as your cash. Okay, that is the carried forward balance. Carry forward balance. Right? I'll see whether I can move this out a bit. Can you see now?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So what you can do is you can take down this now. What we have done is the total is here, total payments. That total payment will get deducted in the first column at the month end. And the petty cashier, what he will do is, he will go with this schedule, give it to the main cashier, showing that 7,250. He will check all the bills and everything. And again, he will give the petty cashier this 7,250. So that the petty cashier will start the month of May again with 20,000. With 20,000. This is how this petty cash book concept works. So I would like you all to take down this. I'll just give you about 2-3 minutes. Just try to take down. So for exam purposes, it is very unlikely that you might see petty cash book might be given. But this is just for your knowledge that I am doing. But in case if it comes, you should know how to write up a petty cash book. But generally, this petty cash book and all are very like miscellaneous topics that you might very unlikely to be tested. Okay, but the concept per se you need to know, that is how the petty cash system works. It is a impress system, and the amount of expenses that you have incurred will be replenished every month. That is how it works. So what is the requirement? You have to prepare a schedule. The petty cashier needs to prepare a schedule showing all the expenses. Like this is the structure that I have shown you, is more or less somewhat similar that they will prepare, but each company might have their own structures. So there is no restriction on how you have to maintain this petty cash book. Okay. But what is important is the petty cashier has to maintain or make sure that all the bills wherever possible is obtained and it is maintained, and you prepare a schedule grouping like this. Now, when you have a similar kind of a transaction happening over and over again in the month, you have to group them accordingly. So when you have refreshments, like say you might have tea, you might have coffee, or you might have pastries. So you shouldn't be preparing columns for each and every, one column for tea, one column for coffee. No, what we will do is we will group them accordingly and say refreshments. Then similarly, you might have purchased stationery, various types of stationery, but we don't go and say every type of stationery in the columns, because then this column will be, number of columns will be very lengthy. So we don't do that. We try to group them according to some common understanding. Okay. So I hope you have understood the petty cash book, and that is all about the books of original entry or prime entry. We are done with all the topics relating to the books of prime entry or original entry. What we will do is we need to do another related topic on this, that is control accounts. So control accounts we will do it separately. You don't have to worry about control accounts in this, but control accounts are also part of this same topic, which we will handle as a separate topic subsequently. Okay, right. So let us now get on with a new topic. I think this is already uploaded in the portal. I hope you have already received it. Have you all received it? Can I get a feedback, please?
No, sir.
This handout was not given?
No, sir.
It should have been there in the portal. Let me check. I had this last week. I think it's not. 6, 12, 13. This material was not available. Let me check. I'm told that it is available, but let's start with it like you can obtain it subsequently. Okay, I'm sorry about if it was not available. Yes, I think it was not uploaded. Yes, yes. Okay. Anyway, I will ensure that they will do it immediately. I have informed them. So what we'll do is we'll start with the chapter, and then you can catch on the portal with the topic. Right? Is that okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
So we are getting on to another topic, which is on trial balance. So since now we have come up to a certain level from where we have started, now we have we looked at accounting process, double entries, prime entry books. So now we have come to a topic where the initial point of getting ourselves ready to prepare the financial statements. Okay, so still we have to learn a lot, but this is the starting point where you will look at the preparation of financial statements. Okay, right. So as I explained to you, the ledger will have the entire group of accounts maintained by a company, right? And as I told you in the previous chapter, these accounts will include all the impersonal accounts. Okay. So the personal accounts, as you know, it will be in the day books, like the sales day book, purchase day book, sales return, all those. But the ledgers are, ledger will have all your accounts, the control accounts and the impersonal accounts, nominal accounts, your assets, liabilities, real accounts, everything is included in your ledger. Now, the interesting part of it is, in good old days, or maybe in the time where the computer systems were not developed, people were maintaining their ledger in books. So different companies had different types of ledgers. Some people, they made use of CR books to be their ledgers. And some companies, they have books called the ledger books, which are very large, and they maintain those as their ledger books. But now what has happened is, everything has been brought into one umbrella, under one umbrella, which is your computer system. So companies will have at least a small kind of a software tool where they want to maintain their accounts in a system. Okay, so it is very unlikely where people still want to maintain ledgers in books like CR books or maybe any other books, and it is very unlikely that people still do it. Okay, so the future will be very much into new and more systems coming in, especially with regard to the bookkeeping exercise. So today we have the ledger in the computer systems, and as a result, you can have any number of accounts. There is no limitation for the number of accounts that you can have. But when it comes to, just imagine what would have been the situation when you are maintaining the ledger manually. Because for each account, you have to allocate a page in the book. It could be one page, or maybe it could be several pages. And you have to cross-refer all these pages when you want to maintain your complete ledger. So it is a very difficult task as far as companies concerned in those days, where maintaining books were very difficult task. But it is very important to note that in the good old days, the amount of transactions also were very low. So the companies were in a position to maintain those books, even though it was a complex activity, because the volume of transactions were very low. But now in today's context, with the advancements that have gone through, and the globalization and all the other aspects coming into the play, the business volumes and the volume of transactions have increased. So it is very difficult for the companies to maintain books, to maintain their ledger. That's why they have moved on to computer systems. So a general ledger in every company will contain all the assets, liabilities, and the owner's equity. The owner's equity means you have the capital accounts, the income, and all expense accounts. So which means all the accounts relating to your accounting equation, which is assets equals liabilities plus equity, means all the accounts relevant or coming under this accounting equation is maintained in your ledger. Now, what you do with this ledger at the end of the period is, you will go and extract a list of balances. Okay, so you will say the cash account, this is the balance. You will say the debtors account, this is the balance. So likewise, you have all the amounts listed from the accounts like shown in the presentation slide. So you will see there is amount called 15,000 and 7,000 negative balance, 1,200 likewise. So what is this negative balance here? If it is a debit balance, you show it as a positive. And if it is a credit balance, you show it as a negative. So what is shown here is the cash account summary. Cash account summary. All the transaction that has gone into the cash account is shown here. And ultimately, you have the balance of 8,050 shown there. Okay. Now, we will look at this same list of transactions in the tabular form in a account form. This is how it will look like. The same set of transactions are put in a account form. So those are the debits, and the amounts shown in negative are the credits. Now the balancing part of the account. So you look at the totals, and you look at the totals are 8,050 will be the total balance that you will carry forward. How it happens? 15,000, 16,200, 16,800 on the left side. On the right side, you have 7,600, then 900 means 8,500, then you will get another 8,750. Okay, 8,750 versus 16,800, you get the balance as the account balance 8,050. So the balancing of the account, I did it last week and before that also, I think. So based on the balancing of the account, now what is the balance that you will take forward or carry forward or brought forward balance of this account, which is 8,050 rupees. So cash is an asset account, and what we have learned is an asset account should have a normal balance of debit. So look at this example. The cash account is having a debit balance of 8,050 at the end of the period, which is appearing on the left side. Okay, which is appearing on the left side of the account, which means an asset account, you expect it to be having a normal balance, which is the debit balance, and the debit balance here is 8,050. Now, what is the trial balance? Now, when you look at a trial balance, it is nothing but a list of all the accounts with their balances. So in a ledger, if you are having 500 accounts, what you have to do is you have to prepare a list with all the accounts with their names or account numbers, and you will take all the balances in those accounts after balancing the account. So you know how to balance it. You will total the left side, you will total the right side, you will look at which side is more, that total you will write it at the bottom, and then you will look at what is the balancing figure. That balancing figure, you will put a double entry to see that that will be the carried forward balance. Now those balances you will now have to extract into a list. You will have all the accounts listed and the balances on the other side. So now this list of balances are extracted. Generally, we call it as at a time, at a particular time. Even though we say it is at a particular time, how these businesses have developed is they take it at the end of the close of business. At the end of the close of the business. Now, all of us know that we are working in banks. So the bank's business hours are normally from 9 to 3 or maybe 4. Now, some banks are operating even beyond that, maybe to go to 6 or maybe to till 8 or 9. So obviously, when you look at your business transactions are happening within this time frame. So once all your transactions are taken into the business accounts, what the banks will do is they will do a day-end process. A day-end process will take place in your respective organizations' computer systems, which is generally expected to happen maybe around 10:30 on the day itself. So by that time, all of us have gone, the IT team will be working on that, and they will complete the day-end process. When the day-end process is completed, you will carry forward all the balances from the current day to the next day. That is where we will extract a list of accounts and their balances for the next day. This list of accounts and their balances is known as a trial balance. A trial balance. Now there is a question coming in. Now in today's context, does the business transactions of banks close at one particular point? It is not. What happens? Your ATMs are working 24/7. Maybe some of your branches might be working 24/7. So there can be a situation where people might do online transactions. So the business world has enhanced a lot. As a result, the transactions keep on happening. Somebody wants to transfer money from one account to the other, they might do it in the early morning, around 2, 3 a.m. even. But from a business point of view, we can't be doing that. We can't be keeping a track of all these transactions every time to make this trial balance. So what we do is we will extract the trial balance at the end of the business close. Probably when your IT teams run the day-end procedures, they will extract, or the system will generate the list of accounts and their balances for reporting purposes. And that is what we call it as a trial balance. So a trial balance is a list of accounts and their balances at a given time. Even though we say it is at a given time, it is probably at the end of the day where the systems close the day-end procedure. So the primary purpose of the trial balance is to prove the mathematical equality. Very important. We say mathematical equality of debits and credits after posting. So what are we trying to establish here is when you do transactions, you always confine to the double entry principles. What is that? The total of all your debits should agree to the total of all your credits. It could be one transaction or it could be multiple transactions. It doesn't matter. If you are confining to the double entry principles in your business transactions, then your trial balance will prove that mathematical equality is correct. A trial balance is also used to look at the errors that you might have made in journalizing your transactions. That is, when you are raising your double entries, what should be debited, what should be credited, and what is the amount, those errors, if you have made any, will be rectified or identified at the time of extracting a trial balance. So what do we do here? When you prepare a trial balance, you list all the accounts and their titles and their balances. You will total the debits and the credit columns. And you prove that the two columns or the debits and the credit totals are equal. And this is one such example where you can see, I think it is very small, but still you can manage to see it. This is a trial balance of a company as at a particular date. So what you see on the left side is all the accounts that they are maintaining. And you will have two columns called debit and credit. And depending on the closing balance of each account, they have put it into the respective columns. Okay. And when you put it into the respective columns and total them, you have to get the same total. What is the total here? 756,500 in both columns. If you get the same total, what does it mean? It proves the mathematical equality, which means you have followed the double entry principles correctly, where for every debit or multiple credit debits, you have a corresponding credit or multiple credit. But it doesn't mean your accuracy of the transactions that you have performed or posted. It will only say that the totals of your debits are equal to totals of your credits. So which means you have followed the double entry principle merely from the perspective of debits and credits being equal. But it will not say whether you have posted it to the correct account or whether you have made any error in posting the amounts. No, those are not detected. So the trial balance will just prove the mathematical equality of your list of balances. Okay. And when you are extracting a trial balance, the most important thing is you have to extract all the list of accounts. You cannot miss out on any of the accounts. If you miss out on any of the accounts, then the two totals will not agree. Secondly, you have to be sure that all the amounts that you have picked from your system or maybe from your ledger is exactly same. Say for example, the first transaction here 14,000. If you have recorded it in your trial balance as 4,000, then your trial balance won't agree. Okay, so those are some of the things that we call it as limitations. What are the limitations of a trial balance? A trial balance does not prove that all transactions have been recorded, that the ledger is correct. Numerous errors may exist even though the trial balance columns are agreed. As I told you, agreement between the debit and the credit column, that is 756,500, does not mean that all your transactions are recorded correctly. Still, you can have any number of errors. Another limitation is that a trial balance can even balance even when the following errors are present. That is, if you have eliminated totally a transaction, where you have not considered a transaction at all, still your trial balance will balance. If you have a correct journal entry which is not posted, so you might have written the transaction or the journal, but you have not posted to the system. Say something like this: you have received cash from a depositor, a customer who has come and he has given you a slip and the cash. So what you have done is you have just kept the cash somewhere and you have put the receipt also, but you have not entered the transaction. Since the customer was busy, he has not asked for a counterfoil, he has gone back. Now this money and the slip is lying somewhere where it is not accounted at all. So if you have not accounted it in your transactions, when you extract the trial balance, still the trial balance will balance. Why? This cash transaction has not been recorded. It will not have any impact on the trial balance. Similarly, if you post a journal twice, still the trial balance will balance. Why? When you post it the first time, the debits and credits will be agreeing. When you post it for the second time also, your debits and credits will be agreeing. So there is no problem. Even if you enter the same transaction multiple times, your trial balance will be perfect. There won't be any problem. But you need to know that these type of problems will be there in your trial balance. Incorrect accounts are used in journalizing or posting. Now you have done a transaction where it is something related to stationery, but you can go and put it to some other expense account where the double entry will be agreeing, but you have posted it to a wrong account. It might have happened. Instead of customer A, you might have gone and posted it to customer B. It will not have an impact as long as you have not discovered it. But the moment customer comes and tells you, look, I have given you money to be deposited to my account, but it has not gone in, then only you will go and check. But that particular transaction, posting it to a wrong account, will not have any impact on your trial balance. there is no issue with regard to the trial balance by posting a transaction to an incorrect account. There could be offsetting errors where one particular debit instead of another credit. That also can cause an error in your trial balance. But still, the trial balance will balance even all these errors are present. So this is a simple question that I am leaving it to you all. These are the list of accounts and the balances. Okay, this is a basic question. But when you look at the exam question, you will see how tough it is, because first you need to know what these accounts mean. Say now when you say cash in hand, first you have to identify whether it is an asset or a liability. That is very important, right? Secondly, when you look at this balance, you need to know whether it should be a debit or a credit. That is the most important part. First, you have to identify whether this account belongs to an asset, liability, capital, income, or expense. These are the 5 types that we have. So when you are doing this question, I would want you all to mark each of these accounts, whether it is an asset, liability, income, or expense, or a capital account. So you can mark it on one side, or maybe say you can mark it here itself, right? Then you prepare the trial balance. What you do, you take the list of accounts and you prepare 2 columns as shown previously, like this. You put a debit column and credit column, list all your accounts and put the balances in the appropriate column and see whether you get the totals correct. Okay, so I hope the totals should be equivalent. There are 2 questions, by the way. One is this, the other one is this. So I want you all to do these 2 questions and keep it ready. When we meet next time, we will do both these questions. Okay, plus the petty cash question. Sorry, not the petty cash, the cash book question, which we will do that also. Okay, so with this topic, I think we have covered the major introductory portion of your subject. Okay, so what will start from here onwards will be the topics which are very important for you to know, because those topics will have a direct impact on your exam paper, where there could be direct questions coming on those topics in your examination. Okay, so what we have learned up to now is, what would I say, as the introductory part of your syllabus content. So please do revise all the work that we have done so far, and please make sure that you do the 3 questions that I have already referred to you all, and make it available by the next week, where we will go through those questions in the classroom, and then we will get on to the new topic. Okay, so are there any questions? If you have any questions, please ask. Okay, so then we will wind up the day for today. Let's meet up next week. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.